Hello again and welcome to the program. I am Suren. When looking around, we all tend to observe many people presenting a happy or sad faces and expressions. When we listen to their spoken words, we hear often about people's problems and struggles. Sometimes many are engaged in asking, why do people create problems? I too ask the same from time to time. When you consider people create problems out of nothing, due to a combination of many factors. As we all know, the human tendency is to seek problems, anxieties, and a desire for control of attention. Any kind. This is often referred to as the prevalence-induced concept change, problem creep. That virtually brings us to the subject of the need for focus and the existential anxiety. Some humans, as we discover, believe that fabricating problems can be an unconscious attempt to reduce existential anxiety by focusing on concrete, observable issues instead of the abstract and potentially overwhelming nature of life. Or you may just prefer to call it existence. Here is an excellent point. The human brain is wired to search for problems and threats, even when they don't exist. This then can lead to a perception or problems where none truly exist. The word perception is deliberately used, if you noticed. Prevalence-induced concept change, or problem creep, is the phenomenon, also known as problem creeped, describes the human tendency to see problems where there are none, but often stemming from an expectation of a high level of comfort and probably also a reduced tolerance for discomfort. Keep that in mind. What about the desire for control or seeking attention? Well, sometimes creating problems can be a way for some individuals to exert control over situations or to gain attention. I will say that it is an observed reality. Let us consider some personality traits before going any further. Remember, certain personality traits, such as impulsivity or tendency towards negativity, can also contribute to recreation of small or large problems. Fear is one of them. Some people may create problems out of fear of what might happen if they don't, even if there is no actual danger. In fact, certain religious concepts and the fanatical viewpoints can lead simple folk into insanity of the kind, which may lead to devastating consequences, such as the ethnic cleansing, wars, and desire to start major conflicts, as we can currently see in our world. Some are led to unrealistic expectations. Individuals may have unrealistic expectations of themselves or others, leading to dissatisfaction and perception of problems. This situation may or may not be due to certain individuals' incomplete mindset. As the study points at, a person's mind may not be happy with what is, leading to the creation of problems, with the illusion that the future is better than the present, or that the past should have been different. Then we hear often such questions like, why problems are created when there are none? Perfectionism is one of them. Striving for perfection can lead to dissatisfaction with situations that are otherwise acceptable, causing one to perceive problems where there are none. Communication issues is another one. Lack of clear communication can lead to assumptions and misunderstandings, creating the illusion of problems. There are cults wherein adherents are encouraged to follow it as a principle of faith, and I have observed it with my own partner, who virtually worshipped the cult and its leaders unconditionally. That's where she belonged. I hear the same questions time after time. Is it possible that people create problems where there are none? Good question. A Miss Alvarado says everybody does. They think there is a problem when there isn't. Then they try to solve it, but it creates more because there was none to start with. This statement is true to its core, for I have indeed also discovered with the Watchtower cult, which eventually ended my marriage, and the consequences were truly devastating and tragic. Asta Fried says some people find life much more challenging than others. Factors for this can be DNA-based, we don't know, or one's environment, their upbringing, cultural heritage, specific spiritual experiences, and religious training, or access to healthy individuals or not. My answer is yes. However, if you learn to know who you really are at core levels, self-delusion may just possibly be replaced by self-confidence. Correct? There are those who overthink, such as invisible problems. Others do not engage their own thoughts enough. In other words, they don't think. Let us not forget that life is about balance. The author of an article I read contained an illustration. If you have 3 balls that you are holding, then trying to toss them together successfully, you must master a time to balance, or you will always be dropping one or more, having to begin over and over again. Good illustration. A great advice is discovered in the following words, as I truly appreciate it. If your own problem creations are negatively impacting your life, then look around. Who or what is important? Is this over-focused action helpful? Then begin deleting the overwhelming factors that you have convinced yourself as real when they are not. I totally agree with this, as I will proudly repeat. To me, those who continually self-create their own personal problems have way too much free time on their hands. These types of individuals would be better off donating extra time in some form of public service or support. Indeed, once they see how tough life is, and has been for so much of the world's population, they may stop self-support and sabotaging teaching. Traveling to third world countries would also be extremely helpful. I too spent much time in poverty-stricken areas in Philippines and in Peru, as well as parts of the USA, and know how things are. In fact, as it was written, as a world traveler myself, as I can say these words over and over, I too have always chosen to not only do the wonderful high-end things, but go to the places of poverty, see what I might be able to do that could make a difference in lives of others. At the end, we must start by setting ourselves in alignment. Once this is achieved, we can then move into humanity's resounding vibrational pulse, alive at attention and holding appreciation in the forefront of your or our now. Lance Jens, a poet and philosopher, writes, "It is not only possible but certain. Striving is coded in our genetics. It is part of who we are as a species. Conflicts may arise when we strive doing things beyond our capabilities and capacity to perform them. We must primarily learn to forgive ourselves, as well as others, first. Naaman from Delhi says, "Have you ever got a true prediction from an astrologer? I love telling this story. 2 things you need to know about me. I used to be a non-believer. I'm a very proof-driven person. It was in the last semester of college. I was dating this girl. I was quite sure she was the love of my life. Things between us were serious to the extent that both of our parents knew about our relationship. My mother, in fact, would call her up whenever my phone was not reachable. Years later, one night, I was out with my college friends. These guys had come across some astrology app that was just giving away free chats. We figured that better use of time for a group of intoxicated engineers who were brought up on science and logic. Our plan was simple. The astrologist, throw in fake details here and there, get them to give us bizarre, unrelated predictions, and maybe expose them. When it was my turn, I just straight up lied and told this guy I was single since childhood. I also told him I was building my family's business. And a few more lies here and there. First shock. This guy immediately called me out and said, "If you are not comfortable sharing the information, You don't have to. But I am sensing a connection with someone else in your energies, a very strong one. I see a lot of emotional investment on your part. He also mentioned it could be one-sided, but he claimed he saw something in my energies. I let it go, assuming it was just throwing around words like energy to make his vague answers seem legit. Next, he told me whatever connection I was in currently was eventually going to end. He predicted my actual soulmate was someone, I admit, when I was younger, and would go on to marry within the coming year. I wasn't in touch with any of my childhood friends, let alone be connected enough to assume one of them was my soulmate. We all laughed it off and thought it was bogus, and moved on with our lives. Cut to a few months later, my girlfriend and I had broken up. Turns out she had been seeing another guy behind my back. I shifted jobs and started working for an MNC. Met this girl there, and who I thought was cute. We got to talking, exchanged numbers. Before I knew it, we were dating. It felt like something had just clicked. I was still under the impression that the astrology prediction was a lucky coincidence and nothing more. His meeting my soulmate during childhood thing was still a fail, right? No. Turns out this new girl used to live in my locality when I was younger. Her parents moved cities. We lost touch, completely forgot either of us even existed until we met again. This time as strangers. We both realized we had met earlier when she was recalling some childhood story. Moral of the story: you are never too good to assume you know everything. Something, no matter how mysterious or incomprehensible to our small human minds, can still exist and be legit. Just because we don't get it doesn't mean it is a lie. P.S. I have been married to this girl for a year now. As we all realize that it really is possible to create problems where there are none. As it was spoken before, this can happen in various ways. 1. Overthinking. Well, sometimes people may worry excessively about potential issues that are unlikely to occur, leading to unnecessary stress and anxiety. 2. Misinterpretation. Misunderstanding a situation or someone's intentions can lead to believe that there is a problem when, in fact, there is not. 3. Conflict seeking. Some individuals may create problems through provocative behavior or by bringing up past grievances, even if the current situation is stable. 4. Perfectionism. Striving for perfection can lead to dissatisfaction with situations that are otherwise acceptable, causing one to perceive problems where there are none. 5. Communication. Lack of clear communication can lead to assumptions and misunderstandings, creating the illusion of problems. Recognizing these tendencies can help in addressing and mitigating unnecessary problems. Question: do you often experience a strange malaise? That feeling of blindness that you can't quite explain? Question mark? The good news is that you are not alone. You may be surprised to learn that, although people don't often admit it, but the study shows that everyone's default state is dissatisfaction. It is how we have evolved and evolving. Our inclination to be dissatisfied made our survival more likely. If our ancestors had found perpetual bliss, they likely wouldn't have worked to create the inventions that make our modern life possible. The never-ending drive for more and better pushed us to invent, create, and improve. Think about it. While human progress has changed daily life dramatically, the vestige of our drive to escape discomfort is a hard-to-shake feeling that nothing is ever good enough, right? Our expectation of a high level of comfort has considerably reduced tolerance for discomfort. We see problems where there are not any, effectively imprisoning ourselves in an ever-shrinking comfort zone. Consider. That tendency to see problems where there are none is called prevalence-induced concept change. To unstuck ourselves from that comfort trip, we have to learn to see the world clearly and build a tolerance for risk-taking. And to do that, we must recognize the phenomenon of prevalence-induced concept change and use it in our favor. Through Howard, the psychologist, David Leary and his studies, he discovered that humans constantly adjust expectations. We don't see our situation accurately, which is why we tend to see problems that don't exist. In a story, asked participants to pinpoint threatening faces among a sequence of 800 different human faces that ranged from very intimidating to completely harmless. After the 20th, or I should say 200th face, he began showing fewer threatening faces and be known to the study participants. Yet, rather than identifying fewer threatening faces, participants began to identify neutral faces as threatening. In other words, people can be trained to expect threats whether there are none. Our expectations create our reality. That's the truth. The Levari experiment was conducted in a lab. It is not afar to use his findings to understand that people can be conditioned to see situations in a certain way based on their own experiences. If you have come to expect people to be cruel and conniving versus kind and caring, you are likely to view and treat others accordingly. If the news you consume is full of stories of war, battlements, violence, and hate, you may begin to see the world inaccurately. Prevalence-induced concept change means we are inclined towards dissatisfaction. But what if we look this tendency and used it to help make the world a better place? What would happen if we focused on stories of hope, progress, and improvements rather than spending our time and attention on what the traditional news media wants us to worry about? Humans have a knack for overcoming tough situations. If we believe we can, as Dr. Marcus Elliott, a physician and sports performance expert, told Easter in The Comfort Crisis, I believe people have an evolutionary machinery that gets triggered when they go out and do really hard things. These challenges allow us to discover our extensive potential and let go of the fear and anxiousness we have when we stay in our comfort zones. That is the fact. In fact, Easter says, whereas cultures and religions throughout history have some physical, nature-based rite of passage that challenges the mind, body, and spirit to improve the knowledge, skills, confidence, and experience of the person who undergo it. For example, young Aboriginal men would go on a 6-month solar stint in the outback and, if they survived, return more capable. By changing ourselves, we expand the boundaries of our comfort zone and embrace our potential for self-improvement. Humans have evolved to overcome obstacles. It is healthy for us to experience discomfort. You might think otherwise. The dissatisfaction we all feel can be used as a fuel to make our lives and the life of others better. By putting our problems in proper perspective and leveraging our inherent drive for improvement, we can live the kind of lives we are proud of. What are some strategies to avoid creating unnecessary problems, you might ask? Well, I will leave it to you for a little while, and we will most certainly continue by one of the next episodes. Thank you for watching. We will meet you here again by the next program. Keep smiling and be happy. I often repeat. Thank you again.